back and allow that to happen. This girl's from Tuvalu, she's representing their position on this. So basically, we have some existing international treaty regimes that aren't too helpful right now. We could try to amend, make a protocol to the existing climate change treaty and say, we're going to talk about climate refugees as a part of this treaty. That's not going to help much. Because ultimately, climate change law has taken 3 decades to do virtually nothing. And climate refugees is much, much more challenging than just regulating climate change emissions. So that's likely not going to happen. We could create a brand new treaty that talks about just climate refugees, and that would take about 10 to 15 years, which is not an overestimate. This is how long international negotiations take on these issues. So we could easily lose a few more island nations by the time we have a treaty that's designed to protect them. Or we can just go the quick and convenient way and just mobilize support for international funding, because this is about money. If we're going to save these people from their fate of getting submerged, ultimately we need international funding that can be applied on a regional level. So it shouldn't just be Australia and New Zealand, right? It's not their fault. It's the world's fault that we've got climate change causing these inundation challenges. So there should be all the developed world putting money into a fund that can be used on a regional basis as needed to protect climate refugee situations when they arise. Seems like a nice, clean solution. The problem is, it's not mandatory. We currently have this thing called the Green Climate Fund, which is meant to have billions of dollars flow from the developed world to the developing world on an annual basis, and it's meant to be applied in these developing nations to address climate change adaptation concerns, kind of bracing for the impact. The problem is it's voluntary. Right now there's just a handful of countries that have voluntarily contributed. Believe it or not, the US is one of them, which is unusual. That was under President Obama, don't get used to that. So the few nations that have contributed this money, it's not going to be nearly enough for the climate refugee crisis we're going to see. Remember, $400 million just to relocate 400 people in Alaska. When we're talking about island nations of tens and hundreds of thousands of people, that's not going to be something that's going to be affordable if only a handful of developed nations are contributing to that fund. So a lot of real serious challenges, legally, socially, politically, to get meaningful relief, but the most important first step is dialogue. We have to raise awareness about these issues so that they can be addressed at political levels everywhere, state, federal, international. We're going to see a lot of it right here in Florida. So don't forget that South Florida is one of the top 10 most vulnerable places in the world to sea level rise. So the projections, if you've got friends, family, property in South Florida, 2100 is when it's supposed to be underwater. That would be Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So we aren't talking about, oh, you're a tree-hugging environmentalist and you're always talking about how the sky is falling. It's going to happen in your kid's lifetime in South Florida. So ultimately, we have to look at how things are happening right in front of our eyes here in our state and apply that at a national and international level to try to get some meaningful action on these issues, because we are a part of the problem and we are a part of the impacts.